All right, we are live on Impromptu Wolves Only podcast. Dillon, Reed. I was excited about our conversation the other night, just about kind of reigniting my fire for sobriety coaching. And dude, there is nothing better than that feeling,
helping another person change their life for the better, ideally,
right?
Ideally,
yeah. Yes. Interesting. I have been watching a new series on Netflix. Okay, it's called, I don't remember what it's called, but I'll give you the premise before I just go and look it up. Okay, you got a jail in Texarkana, in Arkansas. Okay. Outside of Little Rock, and it's the sheriff. There's a new sheriff in town, and he basically, this jail has a 50% return rate.
Ooh.
So very good Yelp reviews. 5 stars. I really will be back. So for the longest time, this jail was set up as 23-1, meaning that 23 hours you were in lockdown. Okay. So this sheriff starts reading about other countries, Scandinavia's return rate, and their experience and their rehabilitation processes and their successes, other countries who have experimented with other things, and like it or not, there's some concepts behind Venezuela legalizing all drugs across the board, things like that. Okay. And really pushing towards reform and rehabilitation. So that's all great, right? So this guy says, here's what we're going to do. He says, we're going to overhaul the jail. Okay. And then we're going to open the doors 24/7.
It's unlocked. They can just leave if they want.
They can they can go in and out of their cells. They can mosey around. They can make their own food. They can do everything. Okay. But even more, to take it one step further, we're also going to pull the guards.
Okay.
This is an American jail. This is an American jail.
What?
In the South.
Does not sound, especially in the South, does not sound correct in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And they interviewed some of the inmates beforehand, and these are some bad cats, man. These are guys that are they're sneaking a lot of drugs in. They're they got shanks and whatever. So he says this is going to be an experiment. So they go in and they meet with all of the inmates, and they say, here's the plan. We're going to open the doors. Okay. And you guys will be 24 hours. You're allowed to roam around. You're allowed to do whatever. But if one of you fucks it up, you go back into lockdown. Fair. And he goes, but what I want you to do is I want you to create a community. I want you to hold each other accountable, because all of you, he's like, how many of you, he goes, how many of you guys scheduled this? He said, how many of you scheduled it to all be here together? And they're like, obviously not, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, this is what you're stuck with here. Okay. So you got to learn to work together. You got to learn to be a community.
Yeah.
Right. Now you can imagine, have you been to jail?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I figured as much. Same. And that's great. Right. But have you been any further than the drunk tank?
Oh yeah. I have.
Nice.
Yeah.
How much further?
Yeah. I guess I probably spent 2 weeks or 3 weeks of my life in jail at this point.
Okay.
Yeah. Nothing crazy, man. I, recreational drug user plus drunk in my lifetime. So, you you fail enough UAs, pee hot enough times on probation, they're going to make you go spend some time and try to scare you straight, right?
Scare you straight. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm not that far in the show, but the idea behind it, I actually really like, and the idea of building community. And obviously, when you're in jail or in any type, if you're incarcerated in any way, you're going to be dealing with a lot of people that do struggle with substance abuse and things like that, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So now you're starting to introduce community accountability and working together with people that you wouldn't otherwise be working with. Okay. So that's where I'm at.
Love it.
But the concept really, it made me think.
Let's hear it.
You ever hear about the cocaine rats?
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
The study where they decided not to do drugs when their life was better.
Right. So and for the listeners who don't know the story, so basically they put one rat in confinement, right, in a cage with two bottles, one with cocaine and one without cocaine. And the rat almost always preferred the one with cocaine, right, until it became addicted and then eventually died. Okay. But then when they introduced that rat to other rats and toys, little hamster wheels,
ways to live socially, right?
Right. And they almost always preferred the bottle without the cocaine. Very rarely did any of them even touch it. So these inmates are the rats, right?
Yeah.
And he's putting this to the test. So that's as far as I am. I'm only like 10 minutes into episode 2, but the gates are open. And of course, there's some cats that are already about to fuck it up. But
yeah, of course,
it's funny to watch, how, and even if they make it or don't, what's really interesting is to watch like how the elders, the guys who have been at it for a while and been really, they've spent a lot of time behind bars, how they're responding and how they're starting to try to lead, but then the pushback from the other guys. And it's really interesting, the human mindset. But this goes back to our conversation the other night about like all of it's fun, right? But we got to have something better. And I think that the biggest part of that better is connection.
Yeah. Social connection, connection to higher purpose, right? Yeah. I think I'm really interested how the show goes. You're going to have to let me know.
Well, you can watch it.
Oh, I know I can watch it, but that means I have to have time to watch it, Justin.
So, if I can find time, you can find time.
Hey.
I know I have a TV. I have a flat, like a mounted TV right above. So I have a 50-inch rounded curved screen, right? And then I have a flat screen mounted right above it, right here.
There you go.
So like while I work, you know what I mean? I can have something going, keep me busy.
Yeah.
But when we talk about connection, have you ever heard the concept that the opposite of addiction is connection?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's really prevalent in the recovery community, right?
Yes. Yeah. Kind of a cliche at this point.
Yeah, sometimes, man. But sometimes they're like battle tested cliches. They're not just because,
Yeah.
I think that's really one of them.
Or the gift of desperation.
Yeah. I mean, some of it's really legit. I mean, you think about it. I mean, I experienced a moment of desperation in my addiction before I got sober. It wasn't, I mean, I think everyone's rock bottom or whatever you want to call it is going to look different, but mine was just a moment where, I kid you not, I slipped on some ice at a bar, I was smoking a cigarette, fell on my butt, and this guy's like, as a joke, reaches his hand out and goes, "What are you doing with your life?" And I swear to God, I didn't have an answer. And that was enough. I was like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And that's not cool,
Right.
It took me another couple, like a week and a half. But I was like, that was enough. Like it never stopped reverberating in my head. It was like, dude, you have no purpose, no meaning. You just exist and drink right now. What are you doing?
Before that moment, did you have a desire to be sober?
Dude, almost zero, man. In a lot of ways, I didn't even have a desire to do anything except crash and burn, dude. I was just like fast track, blackout. I called it time traveling. I mean, that's kind of gross, but it was like, I just drink until I had something that was important to do, and then drink again. Just, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of it was, and the reason I share that story is it also segues perfect into that connection thing, because I had pushed my wife away in my drinking. She's in another state. She took a job in another state. Divorce wasn't originally the plan. You know, being away forever wasn't originally the plan, but it quickly started to become the plan because my drinking got worse. And without that connection to my wife and my kids, my life felt very meaningless.
Yeah.
And the drinking got worse, and then the relationship got worse, and it's just like a snake eating its tail, you know?
It is.
It was a wild, wild experience, man. But I always like, people ask like, how did I get sober? How did I stay sober? All that stuff. And it was nurturing relationships with complete strangers that knew what it was like, what boat I was in. They knew my pain in a way that nobody else did. And fostering those relationships like brought me back to life, dude.
Right.
Yeah. You know?
Wow. I mean, it's so funny when, like, you know, I just met you, but you know, obviously you have there's a strange way that we all kind of have the same experience and the same history with our battle with substances and just what it really, because it's not right. Another cliche is like, we don't have a drinking problem, we have a thinking problem, right? And listen, I grew up in the auto industry. I hate cliches. I hate what are they called? Acronyms and all of that stuff.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's like you've been in sales your whole life. You know every acronym under the sun. But leave it to a bunch of fucking drunks to come up with the best cliches, acronyms, and sayings, right?
Yeah. Nailed it, man. You know, why do you think that is?
Because we're smarter.
Waiting for that.
We're smarter.
No, I mean, that's such an interesting concept, man. Because like, you think about it, and I'll tell my clients this. It's like, if you're not institutionalized, incarcerated, or dead, you're out there like, quote, thriving in addiction. Because you can thrive in addiction.
Hell
like,
yeah, I did for a long time.
Doing it great in addiction, you know. There's something pretty special about you, like, because you're beating the game that's currently rigged against you, is what it comes down to. You're still surviving and thriving out there,
right?
Folks that are listening, this is not me advocating that you go try these things, right? I want to make that abundantly clear.
Although I've said it before, I think some people need a little dose of rock bottom. You know what I mean? Like,
dude, I'm with you, man. I said that I do not go to AA regularly. It was a big part of my recovery tapestry. I mean, to an extent, still is, right? You don't leave. You can leave the rooms, but you don't leave the rooms, right?
Right.
But you know, you think about it. It's like, I always said that I knew people that were sober that could use a 12-step program. Like, it didn't need to be about drinking or drugs.
Well, if you think about it, like, we're the only ones that have that. We're like, you know, there isn't a place in the world where a normal person can get in a room with a bunch of people that suffer from the same fucking thing. There isn't.
Not really. Yeah.
You know, maybe like, you know, if you're like a cancer survivor, or, you know what I mean? Like, but like, really,
it's
like,
all still 12-step model stuff, you know?
It really is
modeled off it.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people could really benefit. I think everybody could really benefit from actually working 12 steps personally. I mean, I know what it did for me. The spiritual awakening part, that's all fantastic and everything, but actually really like looking inside of yourself, forgiving yourself, finding serenity, righting your wrongs, learning your character. Holy shit. Learning your character defects, sitting down. And you know what's so funny when like you go through your fourth step and like, you know, and I don't know if you had the same setting, if you did a traditional AA style, but where like you sit with your sponsor and you literally tell them all your fears, all the things you've done, everything that everybody you've harmed and all of the lies you've told and people and when they give you that list of character defects, and you're like, I'm the biggest piece of shit ever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
Yeah. 100%.
but then you go into these rooms and you meet these other guys and it's like, you're blown away. You're like, it wasn't that bad. Or maybe
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah. 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 Well, I always think like, man, the 4 step's so interesting because it's so mystified in a way. Like people just get hung up on it. Like I can't do it. I can't do it. It's like, dude, just do it. Just sit down, do it. It's not going to kill you. It's going to do the opposite for you. I promise you. If you sit down and, I mean, yeah, it's hard to look in the mirror. It's hard to look in the mirror and go, dude, I did that. This is what's wrong with me. But life on the other side is you're built better after that.
Yep.
Like you know where you stand with yourself, not with everybody else, not with not with anything. Yeah, it's just you. You now know, okay, I'm afraid of those things, and then I act this way when I find myself afraid of those things. Let's work on not being afraid of those things. Let's work on not lashing out at the people I love, you know.
I think a big thing for me was the letting go of control. A massive part of finding success in sobriety was realizing that I'm not smarter. I'm not going to outsmart it. And I'm not, and as simple as it is, you know, Bill W. was a very intelligent man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, alcoholics, we're just smarter than you. We are. Yeah. Plain and simple. The smartest men that I've ever met in my entire life, the most brilliant, the most successful, the funniest, the quickest witted, quickest comeback with the sharpest tongues are alcoholics. Period. Yeah. I do not know anybody that has more talent than an alcoholic or an addict. But here's the thing. It's like when you learn, like when we realize that like we're not smarter than it, when we're not going to outsmart something that is so simple, that look at it this way. And this isn't meant to advocate for AA whatsoever. Okay. But what I will tell you is when you go to the hospital for drinking, the doctor tells you you should go to a meeting.
Yeah.
When you sit in front of the judge for your DUI, the doctor or the judge says, you got to fill out this card. You got to go to X amount of meetings. Mm-hmm. The police, your family, the pastors, the priests.
Yeah.
Everybody tells you that's where you need to go. But when that doesn't work, you know what they tell you? Keep coming back.
Yeah. It's true, dude. It's true.
That's the end of the road. Your way got you there. Your way, right? So it's to me, it is what it is. You know, I still work my 10th step every single night.
It's awesome.
I still do.
That's awesome.
And I've learned to live my life to where it's almost redundant, you know, but there's times where I lash out.
Yeah.
Old behaviors resurface.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's why I take an inventory nightly. I have an app. Have you ever seen the app?
No.
There's a 10-step app.
I haven't seen that. No. Interesting, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I do it differently, but I still do it the same because I journal in the morning. Exactly 3 things that I'm grateful for that morning. 3 things that would make that day awesome. And then some affirmations, right? And then each night I journal about 3 things that happened to me that day that were awesome. And then how I could have made the day better, which becomes a 10th step, because if I did something wrong that day, best believe that's where it's going. Right. You know, it's like, hey, you know, for me at this point, and it's kids, you know, raising kids is an interesting test of patience. You know, I joke, it's like, I had a friend, he goes, man, I don't understand how you got so patient. I said, I want to be patient. And God gave me 4 kids, you know, like that's it. You know, you learn that, like they say, emotional sobriety real quick, like either that or you're a horrible dad. You get one or the other. Right. But yeah. I think that when they say there's a new way of living, right, you can leave AA, but you don't lose the lessons in the same way that you pick up a personal development book And if you're truly committed to improving yourself, even when you're done reading it, you're going to take lessons with you. You know,
Right.
like you don't have to carry the book with you every day and read the book every week in order to still apply the values of whatever book it might be that you're reading right now, right?
Right.
You know, what do you think
Yeah.
of that?
Oh, that just, yeah, I mean, that's exactly where I'm at, right? Like,
Yeah,
I am not Mr. Bill W by any means, you know,
right.
like Bill W would be like, yo, where you been? We need to see you around a little more, right? I still have my home meeting and I still speak with
Mm-hmm.
my sponsor almost every single day. My sponsor is kind of a business mentor of mine too.
That's cool.
Um, but yeah, I definitely, you know, when the first time I was institutionalized, every good conversation starts out with that.
That's the best. Those are the
The first
best.
time I was institutionalized, I had no desire to get sober, but I was
Mm-hmm.
in the institution for uh 10 days,
Mm-hmm.
and it's pretty brutal. I don't know if you've been in a psych ward. Have you?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. A couple
Nice.
times.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yes.
So really,
Yeah,
you have like a couple things you can do. You can put puzzles together. This one had a little gym, but it was
I've been
trash.
lucky.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. But you had to be like let into it, you know, and
yeah,
then
oh yeah,
they'd like monitor you so you wouldn't like choke on the treadmill. Um, you could make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches,
yeah.
um, and read.
That's pretty much the exact same experience I had.
Yeah. And I decided that I was gonna get into the big book, but I had no real desire. I was there to salvage a relationship, I would think. I mean, really. And I guess I was suicidal too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That'll happen.
Little mix, a little dose of suicide too, but in there. But um, it's funny because that in that moment, it wasn't desperation, but it was like boredom. But I can
Mm-hmm.
still remember like reading some of the stories, and you know, and I didn't understand how to read the big book, and again, I didn't want, wasn't really planning on this being about Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's interesting that, you know, what you just said really did ring with me, because some of the times that like I got into the big book accidentally are the times that I remember most.
Yeah, yeah. That makes total sense, man. You know, and I think like you can't be, you can't have an honest conversation about sobriety without including AA, even if you're against it. Like it's just such a, it's such a prolific organization. It is, it, it's a firmament at this point. You know, it's not going anywhere. So you're being disingenuous to
Right.
try to discuss sobriety
The thing's
without
been
bringing
around for
up.
over 100 years. I mean, what are you going to really do?
Yeah,
Have
yeah.
you all watched the movie, the Bill W. Documentary?
Watched it in a rehab on movie night, buddy.
Wow, yeah,
Yeah.
that was a real clever rehab facility, huh?
Oh, dude. Well, really, it was a very expensive entry into AA. Is how I'd experience. I would explain it. Like
I think that's how a
nothing
lot of them
against
are.
it, man. Yeah, I think most of them are that way. Like, um, I have my theories. This is not the time to get into it because there's a lot of talking. But I have concepts on why that system is the way that system is, and why there's really no current breaking away from it. Just has to do with things being old and things being the way that things are. We go, it works 90% of the time.
How
Don't
long
need
did
to
you stay in
change it.
treatment?
30 days, 32 days, I think, maybe somewhere right around there.
Yeah,
Um,
I stayed 5 months.
damn, dude. Um, I could not have done that.
I stayed 5 months. Here's why. There are a couple reasons.
Love it. Let's hear.
Um, I think my first 30 to 45 days were thrown away because again, my intentions were in it to help or to be to rekindle a relationship
To
that was
do it,
dead.
so to solve something that wasn't you, right?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
That's one.
Mm-hmm.
So and then from there, now my rehab was fantastic, right? I was in,
Yeah.
that's funny. My house right now is kitty corner to my sober living house. And
Wild.
where I live is very nice, like very
Yeah.
nice,
Yeah.
right on the beach. I lived in a 4-story, tall. They call them tall and skinnies, but 5,000
Mhm.
square foot home on the beach right here. It was a really expensive treatment center. I was paying cash out of pocket, so on and so forth. Okay. But
Mhm.
so it wasn't a terrible experience, but it was still very humbling in a way where, like, you're getting driven around in the druggy buggy and so on and so forth, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my first month and a half, almost 2 months, were spent thinking that I was going to move back and things in my previous relationship were going to be fixed. Okay. That was my
Mhm.
first mistake. Then when I actually started working a program, um, it started to work, right? And I started to realize like what this was going to do for me, and I needed to really put it in. Then when I realized how that I started finding sobriety, and how my talents were actually being suppressed by my addiction, and even when I wasn't a full-blown addict, that I was still like very talented, but it was going to waste. Then I was like, okay, I want to strengthen this. Okay.
Yeah.
um so that was like month 3. Okay. Month 4, it was like, okay, I'm falling in love with Huntington Beach, and I'm falling in love with the process of sobriety and helping people. Now by month 4, I'm already almost through all my step work. I'm about to be able to become a sponsor. And it was like, this is really great.
Yeah.
So to backtrack a little bit, I had gotten in some trouble, and I owed the state of Michigan some jail time.
Yeah. That
And
happens.
24-hour lockdown jail time. And I had to be on the lookout. Helicopter chase. I didn't even know I was being chased. I was so fucking whacked out of my mind that I didn't even know. And so I was a danger to society at that time in the court's eyes, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Not to mention I was also in drug court in Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the place people don't escape usually.
Yep. But I was working. Now I was a model client, right? Like at this point, like I'm doing the work, I'm helping people, I'm really pushing hard. So the treatment center, they loved me, and I'm sure they loved the 30 grand a month in cash they were getting
Oh
too.
yeah, for sure. Always.
But I was like really starting to build connections in there and things like that, to where they all went to bat. They started
That's
writing letters to the
awesome.
yeah, they started writing letters to judges, my sponsor, guys in AA, like people were really starting to go to bat for me, to the point where it was like everything got dropped.
That's awesome.
And bro, I owed some jail time. I owed a year and a half of drug court. I had a lot of debt to pay to society in the state of Michigan.
Hmm.
And all the work that I had put in on myself worked. Like it worked, because all of that transferred over to them. They saw what I was doing. And then month 5, I said, I'm not coming home. And when I talked to the judge, I talked to my attorney, I talked to everything, they said, you're wiped clean, and stay out there, enjoy it, and be the best man that you can be. So I literally got to start my life completely over.
That's awesome.
And people don't realize that you can be born again.
Yeah.
You can be, like, you can change. You can take all of the things the mess that you've made, and turn it into a massive victory. In fact, most massive victory stories come from the total dismantleization, if that's a word.
Sure. I'll take it today.
It sounds great, right?
Yeah.
And you can turn that into something very positive. So I get
Yeah.
out of rehab. I'm like, and also at that time I started talking to who's now my wife.
Hmm.
So I had a
Awesome.
buddy that was like, hey Jay, you and Lizzie seem to really be getting along. um I'm gonna go out to Thailand for the winter. Why don't you like move into my place? And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, I got a place right on the beach, literally another block from my house right now. Okay.
Nice.
As a matter of fact, my homie that was my roommate in sober living now lives in it. I left it all furnished for him. I had and I'll get there in a second. So he lets me move into his place in Thailand. Now I'm starting to get pretty serious with Lizzie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, and he was friends with Lizzie prior. So he was like, he's like, I hope you're really enjoying the place. I'm like, yeah, it's this little like beach house, like, old, whatever, not what I'm usually used to. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's great. Thanks so much. And I'm living the life, right? As a matter of fact, I'm like, I'm going to move here permanently now at this point. He's like, well, that works out really great because I'm not coming back from Thailand. He goes, you can have the place. You can have everything in it. He's like, I'm not coming home. He's like, I found true love in Thailand and it's all yours. So he gives me this place. He's like, you can have all the furniture. And I'm like, well, I don't want the fucking furniture. I don't want any of this stuff. And this place is like, it's rough. So I pack up like his personal belongings. I bring him to his office over in Long Beach. And then I gutted the place, put new floors in, repainted it, did work in the kitchen, fixed up the bathroom, had it decorated, everything. And stayed there in this little beach house for almost 2 years.
Wild.
And it's small, really small beach house. And so I ended up, right away. I'm like, I need to get a get well job. So I started running a showroom in a car dealership. And I'm like, holy shit, right? But while I was in there, I had two get well jobs out of rehab, and then about 2 months in, I started online coaching, and cool. It blew up. So like, look at how that kind of like what I was talking about. Like, you can be born again. You can have a massive amount of success. I started online coaching because I loved working my 12th step. That was it. I love doing that. And I was like, I want to create a business out of helping guys get in shape, get their heads right, get sober, and that. And I never thought that it was going to turn into a $7.5 million a year business at this point.
Yeah, no.
And then I never knew that it was going to allow me to be able to create an 8-figure marketing agency.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Never once. Like, it wasn't even in the cards. I didn't even think it was a plan. But I truly do believe that it was like that concept of like really putting the work in on yourself, allowing like your bottom to be your actual bottom, and taking 5 fucking months of my life to reset.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, and I will say this, people will look at like taking 5 months, but I could never do that. I have kids. I have a job. I have a life. I got things. Like, it's 5 months.
Yeah.
It's even if you only went for 90 days, it's 90 days.
Yeah.
Your job doesn't need you that bad for 90 days. You won't be missed. And they certainly don't need you the way that you are.
That's the key right there. That's the thing I wish more people would just grasp. It's that, because before my wife moved away, we had talks, like, because I was aware, like, I knew I was out of control. There were moments of lucidity where I'm like, man, this is bad, right? And the talk was like, maybe I need to go to rehab. And then the immediate thing was, I can't afford to leave work. I can't afford to not be around this. I can't that. Well, fast forward years later, I ended up doing it anyways. And I didn't have a choice about whether I afforded it, right? So it's like I could have saved myself money and time if I had just made the right choice at that time instead of putting it off. And I think that I don't think enough people understand that, you can take that time. And in fact, if that's what you need, it's a need, guys. It's not a want. Like, you're not going on a 5-month vacation. You are fixing yourself.
Right.
And the world will thank you for making that choice when it's all said and done.
Exactly. Right. And I think people that will listen to this podcast when it gets formally released, need to understand that, like, it does work like that. It really does. Like, everybody knows the story of the cat that goes back to rehab over and over and over again, right? And never changes. We know those guys. They don't change. They're sick. They're sick in the fucking head, right? And we were all sick in the fucking head too. But for those who really want it, who are willing to let go of control and are willing to surrender and really put in the work. And once they do find that peace, that serenity, that spiritual awakening, like, that's why I always say I take a drug addict and alcoholic over anybody in recovery. I would take a drug addict in recovery over any individual in the world. There's nobody more committed.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
There is nobody more committed than a drug addict.
Yeah.
Now you give that drug addict a taste of success. You give them a future. You give them some purpose. Fuck. Hello. They're going to become addicted to that. And that same cat that would walk barefoot through a fucking city, through the streets in a city, at 5 o'clock in the morning, snowing, to get their fix, will outperform you 10 times out of 10.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. There's a resiliency and a grit, that you develop in order to achieve goals. Okay. Cause this is where people get things confused. Dude, a bank robber has a goal, right? They have goals too. They're not aligned with your moral compass, but they got a goal. They're out to achieve it. An addict is no different. They have goals. They got dreams. They got hopes. They got aspirations. They just look different than what you think they should look like. And I'm not advocating for those kinds of goals, right? But they're go-getters. They are people that will come up with $100 or more a day to support a habit without a job. Yep. Without a job. Okay. I probably don't support the unscrupulous activities that they undertook to get said money, but they did it. They achieved their aim. Mm-hmm. And you put them on a path like you're talking, where they're on the straight and narrow, where they're on a railroad that's worth driving on.
Yep.
Hey, sky's the limit, right?
All right, guys, that wraps up an episode of the Wolves Only podcast. Listen, if you guys like what you heard, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like and comment, help us get our message out there. If you want to work with our team, go ahead and click the link in the description below. Schedule a call with us. We'd love to get you on. We really appreciate you guys listening. And if you have any other questions, you can reach out to us on all forms of social media. Thank you so much.